Good evening, sir.
Yo, this is episode 78 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your host, Brett and CH. Today's topics, well, fuck man, you know what it's going on. The markets are going nuts. Looks like people are finally taking coronavirus seriously. And the last topic is the QE tsunami that's about to hit us directly in the face as the printing press ramps up full gear for, I don't know, the foreseeable future, if I had to guess. We haven't released a pod in a while, but how you been doing, man? You surviving out there?
Yeah, I'm surviving. It's funny, like, we haven't recorded a podcast since last Sunday, but, like, things have changed. Things have really changed. I think last Sunday, like, U.S. cases they were definitely under 1,000. We were a couple hundred, like probably 700, 800, I don't know off the top of my head, but we weren't 1,000. And the U.S. is 2,726 confirmed cases, and we still haven't ran that many tests. It's not getting any better. Like New York, 525. California, 340. Washington, U.S., 572. Florida, 76. It's everywhere. It is a pandemic, as one would say. When you look at this map, there's no other word to describe it. It is like that game. That is what it is exactly like. There's this game that, I don't know, my brothers and I used to play in this. I think it was Addicting Games, and it's the exact same thing. It's pretty ridiculous. And if you can see in the bottom right corner here, I'm just saying for the YouTube people, the curve here has become very parabolic, one would say, on the other locations. So there's mainland China in orange. There's total recovery, which is going up, but the curve for other location infections is just going nuts. It is going crazy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. And it clearly seems in the U.S. that some people aren't taking this that seriously, which could make this get a little much worse. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm seeing what's happened in Italy, Iran, South Korea, and China, and that's like more than enough. And then obviously, I don't know what's going on in Spain, but they've quarantined their country. So has France, apparently, now. So it's getting pretty ridiculous. And I think the U.S., we're a week away from that, maybe, at most. I think, like, literally a week. And people are like, you're crazy. No way. Yeah, there's going to be quarantines in a week. There's no way. March 21st. There's no way. I guarantee it. Like, okay, maybe the end of March, but I don't think we're going to make it another 7 days, dude. Things are changing too quickly. What do you think?
It seems like the sentiment changed, and I guess we'll get into this because this is a good part to talk about for the QE tsunami, to kind of talk about the expansion of the money supply, basically to try to fight a virus, which is ridiculous to even say, but it does seem like sentiment has changed. And as someone who, what are we? We're both retail friggin' numbskulls, right? I mean, you can kind of sense, and
I like to refer to myself as retarded.
You can sense the sentiment shift really quickly, and I think that's one of the most interesting parts about having been into Bitcoin for the last 3 years, it feels like, and then kind of jumping down this coronavirus rabbit hole. I guess you and I have been talking about it at least since middle of January, and then we probably started mentioning it on the podcast right around then as well. Mm-hmm. But, seeing that just immediate shift overnight is really interesting. But, we'll talk about that when we get into the QE tsunami section. But to jump into the Bitcoin dump below 4K, I mean, so to recap for anyone who hasn't been paying attention over the last couple of days here, Bitcoin saw one of its largest drops, single day drops, I think maybe ever. Maybe this is the number 2 or number 3 of largest drops in one day. Might even be the top drop in one day. So we saw around a 50% decrease in 24 hours. And then we saw a 39% bounce up in 25 minutes or so. And that was just outrageous. My phone was blowing up. It was just a ton of DMs, a ton of texts, wake up. Are you seeing this? Blah, blah, blah. It was exciting to watch, actually, because it seems like things have been relatively, I guess, not volatile for the last couple of weeks. And to see this was just almost unbelievable. I don't know. Were you just watching it all with this?
I mean, I remember looking, I was like, oh, it's breaking down. It's still kind of going there. I thought it was going to go this direction, and it went a lot faster than I thought it would. I mean, I didn't think it would happen in a few days. And we went down a ridiculous amount there, kind of hung out here in this range. I mean, that's still a pretty big range, 5,700 to 64. So that's still a decent range, but nothing really nice looking there. And then puked again down to 38, 33 on Bitstamp. I mean, there was like a 50% swing in that 24-hour period. It's incredible.
Right.
You wonder who is selling. I mean, maybe some people on their phone are just looking at it and saying, fuck it, I'm out, like at that point. But yeah, definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, it's definitely not. And it looks like this is the kind of action you see when you have huge liquidations, right? And we're also going to talk about this when we get into the QE portion of the pod, but there was a really good thread from Low Strife, who was essentially going over his thoughts on all of the BitMEX liquidations that happened over that dump. And I mean, I'm not sure of the numbers. I'm guessing it was in the hundreds of millions in liquidations. And he described it as a slow cascading margin call that lasted for 3 hours. So you're having, people who are trading on high leverage, the trade starts to move against them. You have liquidation after liquidation after liquidation, and it just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping super fast. And that's not your typical retail person logging on to the exchange really quick and saying, oh shit, and like just market dumping. That's typically not what you would see, right? It would take a little bit longer for that to play out. And this just seemed like it happened almost instantly. And a couple of things that it showed me was that, of course, BitMEX is a really great exchange, and I'm glad that they exist. But you do run into the issues of their technical infrastructure isn't perfect yet, obviously, because you had these mass liquidations in which they pretty much had to like shut down the exchange for a small period of time. And then as soon as that happened, the market pumped almost 40% just instantly. I mean, that was the hardest bounce I think I've ever seen.
Think about who's buying that dip. You're like, holy shit.
It was, I mean, everybody who's reaching out to me was like, dude, are you buying? I'm buying. I just bought. And they're buying like all the way down almost. Some people got lucky and got to take a nice position under 4,000. And it's like, whether we go lower than that or not from here is to be seen. But just the pump off of that bottom was unreal. And the other thing I was thinking that it's not a coincidence that kind of happened. These 24-hour markets, the 24/7 markets, are just my favorite thing to see, because this can just play out a lot faster, and you don't have to wait for markets to open back up again, either over the weekend or even from overnight into the morning. It is amazing to see how quickly this market can move and how fast sentiment has changed.
Yeah, no, it's incredible how quickly things change always. We talked about it in the October day where like we went down, what was it, a stupid amount, like for weeks, and then we pumped all in one day.
Oh, I remember that. Yep.
It was over 2 different daily sticks, but it was like 24 hours. It was from like a Friday morning through a Friday night. It was ridiculous. It was October 23rd, 24th, 25th area. Like, it was ridiculous. It was like, 40%. It was from 7,300 to 60, 6,000 or 600. Jeez, excuse me. But anyways, it's, you just see these most ridiculous moves, always the capitulation bottoms and stuff like that.
Yeah, this was, it almost like I'm excited. I'm glad that it kind of happened. You had this cleansing. It was definitely needed. My only concern is that I don't think, certainly there's weak hands that were flushed out who had maybe stops that were triggered, stuff like that. But I almost feel like it happened too fast, where that I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some weak hands left, because they totally missed the dump. They didn't have time to capitulate because it just dumped so fast. I don't know. Do you think there's still some seller exhaustion that is out there?
I mean, when you look at, again, like I like looking at things in high time frame, because it just kind of like especially in these markets and stuff, you just realize it's a pretty big move. So who knows where this finds a bottom, and this still needs to close. So who knows where we still have to close. I mean, if we close down at 3,900, sentiment's gonna be bad. We'll find out.
It's definitely going to be bad.
If we close tomorrow, sentiment's gonna be bad. I don't know where we'll find bottom. If it's not here, this chart should look very bad. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right.
Yeah. I will leave it at that. I will. So.
Well, no, that came up actually on Twitter. People were talking about that. At what price do people start losing faith? At what price is because if you think about Bitcoin and you look at that log chart over time, right, all the way back since the beginning, it's pretty much been up and to the right. There's always been right. It's always been up and to the right, where it typically doesn't drop below that new all-time high. Like in 2014, what was it? Call it 1,200, and then when we dumped at the end of 2018, it dropped to 3,200 or whatever. So that's still, call it 3x above whatever the previous all-time high was. So it was more just a conversation of how important is it to not go. You still have me?
Yeah, like the last 15 seconds I lost you.
I guess I was just going back up to the chart there for those who can watch on YouTube. Just that when you're looking at Bitcoin in a log scale, it's the chart's up and to the right. There's no other way around it. But at what price does that start to make people question or say, oh, maybe it doesn't always make that new all-time high, or the all-time lows always keep going up on a year-over-year basis or a cyclical basis. And on one hand, of course, it would be devastating to like see a candle below 3K, right? That would just like crush so many people's dreams. But whether it matters or not, it's just so hard to say. But it was a topic of conversation today or yesterday on Twitter, so I thought it was kind of worth bringing up. I wanted to see what you thought about it.
No, I mean, I'm not a log chart guy, but I can see what you mean. It really breaks that chart down. If it goes below 3K there, but even on the regular, I don't know if you say linear, I guess, but it's not pretty. This is monthly, at least. If it saves the monthly, maybe. There's a lot can happen. Again, if equities, I think there's been a pretty high correlation between equities and Bitcoin lately. And I don't know if it's just because Bitcoin's the sign of liquidity, but it's like they dump hand in hand. And the Dow Jones weekend futures are down 4% right now. Bitcoin is down. So.
Right. No, I think it's that's a good transition actually into the next topics, talking about the QE tsunami. And there were a lot of really good threads and articles about basically what's happened with the equity markets in the last week or so. And I posted a few of these screenshots on my story. Essentially, there's a ton of rumors swirling around of hedge funds that just were getting liquidated and had margin calls where you have to sell your hard assets or collateral in order to cover your position. So that's why gold dumped, right? That's why Bitcoin dumped. We saw the same thing, and there was somebody had just pointed out that the same thing happened to gold in 2008. As soon as the liquidity crunch got started, gold sold off like 30 or 40%, and then after it found its footing and the QE started pumping, gold just rocketed for 3 years, basically all the way to like 2011 timeframe. I can't recall off the top of my head, but I want to say that. But you did see that initial pullback where the most liquid goods get dumped because they need cash quickly. And when I think about the most liquid goods, gold and Bitcoin 100% come to mind, especially for some of these hedge funds who have, highly levered positions that they need to unload. I mean, at this point in Bitcoin's life, Bitcoin's the first thing you get rid of to cover those positions. At least if I were that sort of institutional investor, I would assume that would be the first thing you think about unloading. But I don't know. I guess it's not a surprise to see every asset class kind of take a beating during these liquidity crunches.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Gold, you can look at the gold chart right now. It's looking pretty sad, and it's the monthly. And when you zoom in, it's just destroyed the past. Silver's even worse, dude. Silver's been crushed. it might be down like 40% or 50%. It's incredible. I don't even want. It's gonna be a sad chart, but gold's down like it had like a down 2%, down like another 2% day, another 3%, 3%. I mean, it's ridiculous, and that's a big move in gold.
Right, that's a huge move for gold.
Yeah, gold bugs aren't happy. Schiff has been pretty quiet.
Yeah, he hasn't mentioned his safe haven asset.
He's
I guess
not been talking about that much.
It's like the battle of safe haven assets. Who has the best safe haven asset?
Yeah.
Bitcoin got absolutely obliterated.
Everyone's been
24
obliterated.
hours, and everybody gets their account pretty much just blown up. But with that being said, I think it's important to talk about when you see these big liquidity crunches and dollars drying up in the system. What does that mean? And it means the printing press is going to have to go back on, right? The Fed and central banks globally, while they should stay out of this mess and let it work itself out and let all the malinvestment kind of work itself out naturally, they're going to pump, right? And they're going to pump trillions into the markets. And Bitcoin Tina had made this comment, and that's why I called this the QE tsunami. When you think about that tsunami, what happens is the tide comes out really deep, and then you have the wave, right? So it's almost like you need that. I don't know if he's insinuating you get that kind of that pulling back of that deflation into asset prices before the wave of QE comes. And we saw we saw equities dump hard. According to the Zero Hedge article I was looking at, 1 trillion in 3-month repos over 2 days. So that's 50 billion on one day. I want to say that was like the 11th, and then another 50 billion on the 12th, and then an additional 500 billion in 1 month repos. So, that's 1.5 trillion that was just literally injected into the market to try to find its bottom, so that all the hedge funds who were highly levered had some liquidity back in, so they could make some moves and try to save this thing. And it's almost the same as when you think about the Bitcoin dump. Like, you had to unplug the system to stop bleeding almost, which I certainly don't agree with. These levered positions need to get wiped out. But
I'm sure, did you follow any of the alert things? The bots on Twitter that show the liquidations are great.
Oh yeah.
When the volatility picks up, it's great
insane.
Because there's people who are like 50 to 100 times on certain things, and they're just done. Because Bitcoin will move like 3 or 4% in a candle, in like a 1 minute candlestick, so it's over. Like, right. All those positions gone. And I mean, obviously, someone's in the right direction, good for them. But like, the people who are not liquidated.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so when you think about all of when you think about just like the image of a tsunami, right, of like the tide coming all the way in and businesses getting absolutely destroyed, and then the wave of QE coming, who do you think gets bailed out? Do you think the bailouts will happen again like we saw in 2008? And, if so, which kind of sectors are you thinking the QE gets bumped into?
I think everything. Everything's screwed right now.
Yeah.
It's small, medium enterprise. It's banks. I mean, dude, the bank stocks are puked. I mean, if they break this level, like, I mean, look at XLF, dude. If XLF just doesn't phase here next week, it's over, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, bank stocks are done. I mean, and then you're looking at like every other business, dude. What's Amazon going to do? No one's going to buy packages because no one can go to work. No one can deliver them. It's, in the meantime, because I think in the U.S. we're just not acknowledging that this spreads really easily, and no one wants to wear masks. No one wants to do anything precautionary. No one wants to scare anyone. No one wants to burst any bubbles. That's what we are in the U.S. We live in this perfect little bubble. Nothing can affect us. And guess what? We're about to find out really soon that things are going to have to take drastic measures or drastic change, but we're going to take drastic measures to fix what's going on. That's like the only way around this.
Right, and I think that's kind of a good point to look at the coronavirus as the pin that finally burst the bubble, right? You and I have been talking about Jesse Colombo's mentioned it, the everything bubble. You have these credit expansion has just fueled all kinds of bubbles, whether it's commercial real estate, residential real estate, the stock market, corporate bonds, all the buybacks. Then you have like the shale oil producers. and like we talked about the oil wars last week. I mean, there's all of these things just coming. All of a sudden, they're right in your face, and then it looks like it's been rolling over. Right, that's prior to any talk of coronavirus. Even at the end of 2019, it started to get rocky, and we were talking about it then. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, we get our black swan, right? Or at least as we first started talking about it, it was almost like, could this be the black swan? Like this could definitely have its issues. China's starting to shut down some factories. Maybe that'll have an effect in a couple quarters. You'll start to see it play out in the numbers. And now fast forward 6 weeks later, and clearly it's starting to get priced in very fast. And you almost need that black swan event that changes sentiment, because at the end of the day, I think the sentiment has more to do with it than you think. I mean, you and I have been talking about the underlying fundamentals for over a year and how they're just complete trash, but it almost doesn't matter.
Fragile system.
It's very fragile, and it almost doesn't matter until you get that black swan event. And I like to talk about this as a topic because when we think about sound money, Bitcoin, gold, just like these hard assets, the more Austrian view of an economy, these black swan events and these deflationary busts are the signal for more money printing, more quantitative easing, more bailouts, more injection of money into the system. And I wanted to get your take on how you think that might be similar, the amount of inflation that could be seen as kind of asset prices pull back and then consumer price inflation increases, similar to, you've talked about this, similar to what happened in the 70s.
Yeah, stagflation. It would be obviously devastating. Well, the biggest thing here is like people can't work, so people can't get income. So you might be able to give them, it seems like we're going helicopter money in the U.S. I mean, we are. We're going helicopter money for the markets for sure, and it seems like people are probably getting stimulus too soon. I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Whether it's Bezos bucks, buy Amazon products or something, I don't know. But we might be heading in that direction. But it's like if people can't go outside, if things get atrociously bad in the U.S., it doesn't matter. Like if people can't go out and be like, oh shit, I'm going to get sick and I can't go to the hospital because the hospitals are just completely overrun, or there's no healthcare workers left alive because they all died in the U.S. I don't know. Or they're all sick, but I don't think people are really thinking this up. And I know that sounds drastic, but you see what happens in China, you see what happens in Italy, you see what happens in Iran, and you're like, oh, countries that get overrun. I mean, it's happening in France, it's happening in most of Europe. Like, the numbers are ridiculous now. Spain is in quarantine, France is in quarantine. Like, Spain, bam, 6,391 confirmed. France, 4,469. Yeah. Like, anyone who had travel plans, sorry, done. See ya.
Yeah, no, it's wild. It's wild that it's a huge issue. Like people have been talking about the hospitals being overrun, all that stuff. You have shortages of certain goods and services. I mean, even here, you're seeing shortages in every grocery store across America right now. People, for whatever reason, toilet paper was the first thing to go.
Dude, I don't know why.
Which like that became the biggest meme so far of 2020. Just like I think the toilet paper memes in the next couple of weeks are going to be hysterical. But it's unbelievable how I like to think of, that high level. What are the impacts of this a couple quarters away from now? As you were just telling me earlier this morning, Apple stores in the United States now are basically closing.
They're closed. No, they were closed. I walked past one today. They're closed. Right. They had like ticker things and the tape things in front of them, and the employees were just standing there because they probably showed up to work to find out they closed. Like it was breaking news this morning.
And the interesting part about that is Apple stores are just starting to open up again in China. If the news or whatever that I saw is actually true, then these stores are just starting to open in China. So you can see how you're having that wave and that shift of everything sort of closing in China for a very long time. Now you're seeing things start to close across the globe, and now things are starting to just open back up in China. So they're starting to get back on their feet, people going back to work, factories are back online, this and that. And it's amazing just that is going to be the trigger and the perfect excuse to increase the money supply. And like, it's so, obviously I think it's bullish for those hard assets, something like a Bitcoin or gold, where like you start to understand how it's very easy to just increase inflation to kind of paper over problems that can't really be solved by that. And they do the same thing every single time, thinking that it's going to work, and it's like clearly not working.
I mean, yeah, like right now the whole system is just broken, completely broken. Like globalism has just gotten like nuked completely, just got nuked, and like in such a fast pace. I mean, we've watched things like it's watching like a slow motion train wreck. What's going on right now? And I think I've said it numerous times now in this podcast, but that is what's going on right now, and it is happening, but it's happening pretty fast. I mean, like we're talking weeks, and this crash, because it is a crash at this point. Like you can't say it's not, because we're seeing just things go ridiculous, like oil prices, stocks. I mean, you can't not say, and even if they QE pump it to infinity, this definitely was a crash at this point. And I don't think, even if we bounce, I think it's going to be tough when earnings come around for U.S. equities to be like, yeah, we have no sales. Like the last, like we're going to say for the last 8 weeks of like, well, even January for Q1, we're going to say for February and March when there's no sales. You know, they're going to be speechless. I mean, it was like the Jaguar Land Rover CEO a few weeks ago. There are no sales in China. And that was like early February. No one was buying cars. Like their demand dropped like 92% for cars. It's incredible.
It is unbelievable. It just shows how interconnected everything is, and how I mean, you know, it's one thing happened, and it has just a tremendous ripple effect that you almost can't believe it until you see it. And when you see it, you think to yourself, holy shit, you know, what if nobody's buying cars for a month? What if nobody's buying Apple laptops for a month? What if there's no iPhone sales for a month? And like and now we're talking about the largest economy on the planet, at least from a consumer goods standpoint, right? That drives the majority of the GDP, is people buying materialistic shit the majority of the year. And all of a sudden you can't do that for, you know, pick a number of weeks, right? Call it 2 weeks, 4, 6. It almost doesn't matter. Any slowdown of 24 hours or more has its impact, where when you're having an earnings call 2 quarters from now, you can say, all right, and you know, the decrease in sales revenue is explained by the, you know, X number of days, weeks, or whatever, where people weren't buying things because of this weird black swan event, right? And every single CEO will probably be having commentary about coronavirus on their next earnings call and how it impacted their results. I mean, there's
literally no way around it, dude. People, yeah. It's annoying now, because it's like, I mean, you and I have been looking at this for over 8 weeks, probably 8 weeks now at least. And it's funny how it's like, we look at it and we're like, oh shit. And people just completely, like, I brought it up to a lot of people and I was just blown off completely. Oh, it's in China. Oh, it's only Asian people. And I'm like sitting here, I'm like, holy shit. No one's actually looking at this. Like, right. It's right there. It's right in front of you, but you're not actually looking at it. You're just like, you hear a few words about it, you're not looking at it. And now everyone is talking about it. And it is everything, and it is everywhere. That's the worst part. It is. You know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to really touch on what you just said, how like sentiment can shift so fast, and all of a sudden everybody realizes something at the same exact time. It's definitely not everybody, because I think there's still like a large percentage of people who like really
idiots.
don't.
It's going to happen. Not idiots is a correct term, because they're just ignoring it now.
Right. But you know, that almost think about it like an awakening that happens all at the same time, and it reminded me so much of the crypto bull run of 2017.
That's exactly what it was.
That awakening of everybody. And, you know, me, you know, putting on my hopium hat, it's almost like I hope that all of the QE that's about to be pumped into the system over the next however long, it's almost like you can't even put a date on it. Do people start having that awakening of, because it just reminded me so much of 2017. It's almost like, well, enough people come around or have that awakening of, oh wow, they're really just going to print trillions of dollars and try to do what they can to save this thing, and then they're going to open their eyes to okay, well then in that case, how can I profit off of this? And you start looking around for things to speculate on. And I don't wonder if that same light bulb moment happens sometime in the future.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. I talked with a kid I went to high school with. We like messaged over this. We were like, it was the same thing as crypto. Like he was in before I was, and we talked about like how we mentioned it to friends, and like there were very few people who were open and receptive about it. A lot of people just said no, or they gave you shit or laughed about it. And even I had people making fun of me for it in October 2017 when things were getting really retarded. And then it was like come late November, December, they were like, oh, how do I get in this exchange? And it's like, sorry, you can't sign up right now or anything. It's like,
right.
It's like,
dude, no, but you nailed it. You can't sign up right now. What else does that sound like? You can't buy toilet paper right now, or
can't buy food.
You can't get out of your position right now on the SPY or something like that. Even I texted you. E-Trade was down. Robinhood was down. Exchanges went down last week, and I mean,
Fidelity.
Did Schwab go down?
Schwab went down. Fidelity, dude. There was a lot of exchanges that had issues last week, like brokerages that were just down. Like it was just crazy. And it just shows you how much stress it puts in the system. Everyone's trying to log in and see their account paper loss drop. Like all these old people are like, holy shit. Because in 2 weeks they go from 10 million to like 7 million. And they're like, fuck. That's what's happening, dude. There's a bunch of old people who have like a decent amount of money that's just fucking vaporizing in thin air. It's that.
And that goes back to when you think about the boomers and the financial professionals who saw exchanges going down for the first time in their entire life. It's almost like, welcome to the party, pal. This was happening every week in 2017.
Oh, yeah, they have no fucking clue.
They have no clue, and you can just see the level of maturity in the market, right? So you have the whole Bitcoin space. It's still super immature. It's going down when the volume's in the billions, right? And then you have your traditional financial markets where volumes are in the trillions, and it was some of the highest volume days for any equity market or commodity or anything that's being traded probably in history, and that was finally the time where the system starts getting stressed. So you can see how much more robust the exchange infrastructure is for the legacy system than Bitcoin. So it's it is good to see, and I hope there's a lot of lessons learned from this, because everybody really just ate shit for the past, I don't know, it seems like 72 hours. Yeah. It's just been a complete nightmare.
I mean, well, really, it's been for everything. It's been the past 2 weeks, and Bitcoin's been falling for the past few weeks, but the last week was crushing, and the equities obviously took a brunt more in the first week. But even then, because Bitcoin's normal, a 14% fall in the weeks, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
It goes
Nobody
up,
cares.
it goes up 9% some weeks, or it goes up 20% some weeks. So you're like, oh, but when you go from 8,100 at the start of the week down to 3,500 on BitMEX, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's just absolutely insane.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa is right.
Yeah, I mean, it's liquidation city on the whole way down, dude. Think about everyone who was short, like had their stops, or long, and had their stops right before right below 6,400 or something. You just vaporized.
Yeah, or if they even filled.
Buying at 5,000. Yeah, buying at 5,000. No, it's just like game over.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say this week was exciting to me for a few reasons. One, I love the volatility that was back. That just it like brings a smile to my face, even though it sucks, and you're watching your net worth just evaporate in front of your eyes. We saw we saw like equities finally start playing out.
Your pain. I feel before.
And then everybody's starting to wake up to the coronavirus. Also was really eye opening for me this week. Just because you and I have been talking about it for the last couple of weeks, and now you can see how quickly information spreads, but it takes a long time to start spreading. It was almost like you could be screaming coronavirus from the rooftops and nobody will give a shit until Tom Hanks gets sick, or whatever.
NBA done.
Right,
MLB,
NBA players,
done. NHL done.
Once people are inconvenienced, once people are like, what do you mean I'm not going to be able to watch sports. I'm not going to be able to do this. Right. And then all of a sudden people start taking it seriously.
Time to looks like you have to tune in to CNBC and Bloomberg all day.
Yeah. So
God.
Do you have anything else to mention after that, or?
I mean, VIX hit an all-time high since the financial crisis of 77.6, almost at 80. I mean, it'll be pretty interesting to see where it closes this month at. All I gotta say is just stay safe out there. I mean, this is pretty serious, and I think that people still think it's a hoax, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I've seen enough evidence to support my side, and the people who generally say this is a hoax haven't even looked into it. So, that's all I'm going to say for this. Be careful out there.
Yeah, it can't hurt to be a little extra cautious in these times. It won't hurt you.
Extra food and water.
Yeah, prepping for like $100 or $200 is not going to kill you, and might even be worthwhile if you're stuck in your home or apartment or whatever for a couple of weeks or making trips somewhere. It's just better safe than sorry. But I don't know. The good news is if we don't have shit to do for the next couple of weeks, I hope that we're going to be able to record a lot of podcasts and keep everybody up to date on just
record one a day.
Just whatever is going to come out of this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk through because we'll have documented everything that we're seeing like over the next couple of weeks. It'll be really cool to go back and see, just like you're going to have hindsight in a year and we'll be like, holy shit, I can't believe we were talking about this, or we were so wrong about that, or, just whatever happens.
Okay. When do you think they stop counting cases? Because we've obviously surpassed 1 million a long time ago. But when do you think, if they do you think they'll count to 1 million confirmed cases?
Oh yeah, I think they'll count to 1 million for sure.
Because I'd be willing to bet we hit that by March 31st.
Yeah, it depends how quickly the official cases double. Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
Look at this chart, man. You've seen this before, man. It's gonna become 100K, and then it's gonna be 150, and then it's gonna be like 300, and then it's gonna be 800, and then 1 million.
Right.
It's unstoppable, man. Look at that. That yellow line's all that matters. China line doesn't matter because China probably have millions infected and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, dead. We have no fucking clue. What we do know is the yellow line here. And if you're not watching, you're listening. It is the other locations line on this coronavirus call by D global cases for center. It's a map. You can put the link in the show notes. We'll have you do that. I'll give it to you. But basically, it is going parabolic as fuck. Pardon my language, but that is what's going on. It's going very parabolic, and it's going to pass the official Chinese number very shortly. And the Chinese are like, look, we contained it. But really what happened was a lot of people died, and a lot of people got sick, but we don't know. We just don't know because they are very tight on control because they are a communist nation, and people don't understand that things are different there. We live in a relatively free society, and so Get ready, buckle up, because the bubble of living in the Western world is about to change.
That's right. I think that's the perfect way to wrap it up. Make sure to like and subscribe to this on YouTube. Share it with your friends if you think this information is helpful for them, or they'll find it entertaining. We do appreciate that. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Help us bump up to those ratings. Follow us on Spotify. But yeah, man, as Brett said, just be careful out there and stay as safe as possible, and social distance, right? Don't fucking go anywhere.
Yeah. Do something, because like people understand, one case becomes like 5, becomes 25, becomes a lot.
Right.
Yeah. So.
All right. Peace.
Peace.